So we've been taking a few weeks at the beginning of our year to look at our new parish mission plan. And so I want to continue that today. And just to tell you a little bit about where we've been, if you haven't been at Mass the last couple of weeks, you can grab your copy of the parish plan. It's in the foyer. You can grab it, they're just near the tap and go machines as you leave this morning. Feel free to grab one. Electronically, it's been available the last few weeks in Declan's Weekly, our e-bulletin as well. So just to give you a little brief idea of where we've been the last couple of weeks, we first of all began with an overview of the plan, and then we talked about our mission statement, which is that we're committed to bringing the love of God to life in people. And then last week we looked at a little bit about some elements of our strategy, how we go about bringing the love of God to life in people, helping people to become disciples or followers of Jesus. And so that was last week's focus in the homily. This week I want to speak a bit about our vision, and I want to do that this week and also want to do it next week, talking about where we want to go as a parish. And so just a word about vision. My favourite definition of vision is that it's our preferred picture of our future. Our preferred picture of our future. Now the future's not in our hands, but we can do things to actually shape where we want to be as a community, as a parish. I think all too often parishes are quite aimless. They keep doing what they've always done. And of course, if you keep doing what you've always done, you can't expect a different result. And so part of setting a vision, part of establishing about where we want to go, who we want to be as a parish community, recognises that we have a direction that we want to head in, and we want to be intentional and strategic about going there. And so we want to have a sense of we're aiming for this and to articulate something of that vision. I want to just remind you about how we have come up with that vision. I mentioned it briefly a couple of weeks ago. The way that we arrived at that was it began with our senior leadership team talking about it and dreaming what the future might look like. Then we brought that to the ministry leaders in the parish over a series of meetings. We then had a parish vision night where we invited anybody who wanted to come. About 130 people from the parish came to that. And then we had our parish council talk about it and refine it further. And in these last weeks, we've been presenting it to you. So that's how we arrived at the vision that we're talking about this morning. We've grouped our vision or structured the vision around 6 headings or systems. The metaphor I like to use here is the metaphor of the human body. That the human body has different systems. That there's the cardiovascular system, there's the musculoskeletal system, there's the neurological system. There are other systems as well that make up the human body. And all of those systems need to be functioning well or there'll be an issue. And if one of those also has problems, quite often it'll end up being that there are problems in other areas as well because they're actually interconnected. We're one body. This works really well, I think, as an analogy for us as a parish, that these systems need to be functioning well and they need to work together well in order for us to flourish as a parish community. And so the 6 headings you can see there, mission, community, ministry, formation, worship and administration, are the headings in which we've grouped our vision. This morning I just want to talk about 3 of those because we can't do all of them, and I'm not even going to go into all of them in great detail. You can see that there's more in the parish mission plan itself. The first of these is mission, and then I'm going to talk about community, and I'm going to talk about ministry as well this morning. So when we speak about mission, there are 3 basic elements for that. The first of them you can see up on the screen. And you'll notice that each of these begins with the words, we want to be a community. In other words, this is our aspiration. As the words of the psalm said, this is our hope. This is what we're aiming for, intending to be. And in many ways, we could point to most of these and say, well, the fundamentals, if you like, are in place. But what we want to do is build upon them and grow them to make them richer and stronger as a parish community. So the first of these is that we want this to be a place where people encounter the risen Jesus through the gift of his Spirit and become his committed disciples. We want this to be a place where people experience that. And the primary tool we use for that is Alpha, as a way for people to discover the person of Jesus and choose to follow him. And so that really is what we would call evangelization. It's helping people who don't yet know the love of God to encounter it in the person of Jesus. Notice too that it focuses there on the risen Jesus. It's no accident that the most visible and central image of our church is the risen statue of Jesus. The statue of the risen Jesus behind me forms the basis of our logo as a parish. And that's because Jesus isn't just a historical figure who lived 2,000 years ago. He is that, but he's more than that. He's the risen Lord present amongst us by the gift of his Spirit. And when people encounter him, their lives are changed and they want to follow him. They want to become his disciples. And so we want to help people, wherever they are on their journey of faith, to discover that for themselves in deeper and deeper ways. But that's only one element of our mission. It's crucial, it's important, essential, but it's only one element of our mission. The second element of our mission in our vision is we also want to be a community where people, especially the poor, the hurting, those who are suffering in some way, experience the love and mercy of God through our practical care. That when we love and care, especially for those who are hurting, especially those who are suffering, especially as we heard in the gospel today, those who are poor in some way, the love of God is made present for them. And again, we seek to do that in different ways. Traditionally, the church has called this the works of mercy. And there are things like the Vinnies group in the parish, for example, that do that. We have lots of initiatives during the course of the year where we invite you to contribute for worthy causes, people that are doing it tough in one way or another. But there's more that we can do here. There's more that we can do to reach out to those who are suffering and hurting. And so that second element of our mission is the very practical works of mercy that we would undertake as a parish. The third element of our mission is that we want to be a community that addresses injustice, both locally, that's in our city, in our community, in our city, in our country, and even globally. As Christians, we believe that there are systemic structures of injustice that need to be addressed, that need to be spoken to. In a sense, it's not enough to care for just this person who's poor in front of me, but we need to ask why they're poor and see what we can do to eliminate the structures of injustice that have contributed to that situation. And so it's really important as a parish that we're committed to that as well. We have the social justice group in the parish that is involved and engaged in that kind of work. And they do various things on our behalf and engage us to collaborate with them as well. Again, there's more that we could do in this area, but it's an essential part of our mission as a parish community. So we talked about evangelisation, works of mercy, and social justice. Three indispensable elements of our mission. And the final one that you can see there up on the screen is that we also want to be embedded within our local community. That St Declan's, as a community, we want to be serving our local region. And people do this in all sorts of ways as individuals, but we want to do this as a parish as well. That we'd care for and reach out to and serve in our local area. So there's more that we could say, and there's more that we will say, and more that we'll continue to say about our mission. But that's the kind of things that we're aspiring to be as a parish. The second element of our vision that I wanted to speak about this morning is community. We want to be a community of faith where people experience deep belonging, where people have a real awareness that they are known and that they know others, where they're loved and they love others, where they're walking the journey of faith and of life together. This is not a spiritual service station. You don't come here to get kind of filled up like you do when you go get your tank filled up with petrol. And you walk away and it's like you've partaken, you've paid for a service, and off you go, you leave the petrol station. We're a community of faith. And the essential characteristic of that is that we're walking the journey of faith together. One of my favourite stories of our time, the Missionaries of God's Love time here in the parish so far about this, was the first Alpha that we did during the day. And there was a lady in one of the Alpha groups. Alpha finished. She went on a cruise. She came back. She wasn't feeling well. It wasn't COVID. She wasn't feeling well, and she needed to have surgery. And she had an adverse reaction to part of the surgery, part of the medication she was on afterwards. And she became very, very ill, critically ill. I went down to see her in the hospital at St George, by the time I came back, they'd rung me again to say that her condition had worsened and she was in real danger of losing her life. We asked people to pray for her, but what I also did was I sent one text message to one of the members of her Alpha table, and then for the next 3 weeks, next month I think it was, 2 weeks while she was still in hospital, then the next 2 weeks while she was home, nobody in her family had to cook a meal. Her husband and her kids were able to just focus on looking after her and caring for her because meal after meal came. That's not an isolated incident in our parish, but that's a sign of really genuine community. It's a sign that people are caring for each other. What I want you to notice there too is it really didn't happen in a centralised way. It didn't happen through the ministry of the priest per se. It happened through the ministry of each other. That's a sign that we're a community. That's a sign that we actually are being the body of Christ together. That's what we want for our place here. That's what we want. There's more to community. I'm just going to pick out a couple of other elements about that. Another one, I jumped over. The next one is that we're a really culturally diverse community. There are people who are born in all sorts of other parts of the world and they've made this part of Sydney their home and they've made St Declan's their spiritual home. This is a wonderful thing. It's a sign, I actually believe, of Pentecost in our midst. Do you remember at Pentecost you had all these people from different parts of the world, the known world at that time, and they all hear St Peter talking to them about Jesus. And there's a sense that there's an incredible unity that transcends their difference. Well, the fact that we are a united community centred in the person of Jesus, even though we come from all different cultures originally, but we've made this place our home, is a wonderful sign of the presence of God amongst us. A wonderful sign of God being at work in our midst. So we want to celebrate that diversity without erasing it for a moment, recognising that we have a profound unity in the person of Christ. The other element of that is that we don't want that just to be people who come to church, but also people engaged in ministry and in leadership in our parish. That diversity should be reflected at all the levels of leadership and ministry in our parish as well. The third element that I want to pick up on community, and there are other things that we could talk about, but the third element that I'd like to pick up on is about our school. That we understand our school to be a place of mission. You know, when I spend time in some of the other things that I do in the church, I often hear other people lament about the fact that the school is so disconnected from the parish and that there are so many school families who don't come to church. Now that's true of our parish too, but what I want for this place is not that we sit there going, oh, isn't it terrible that somebody doesn't come, or isn't it a shame that there aren't more families from the school, but we actually say, you know what, here's an opportunity for us. Here's the potential for us to reach out to people who are connected to us because their kids come to our school, and to reach out to them with love and acceptance and a warm welcome. What an opportunity for us. Not to lament what isn't, but to actually say, here's an opportunity, a chance for us to reach out to people. And so our school is a place of mission for us, to reach out to those families who are connected enough to send their kids here, but we also would love to see them as a regular part of our worshipping community. Another element to that in relation to our school is therefore that it's a ministry of the parish, that we understand our teachers and all of the staff that make up the school to be part of the ministers in our parish, and that when we connect and are involved with the school, we're ministering as well. And then the final element is that they're an integral part, the school's an integral part of our parish community. What I don't ever want to hear is we talk about the school as one community and the parish as another. We're one community. The school is part of the parish community. Okay? There's some distinct elements to the school, absolutely. But we're one community here at St Declan's. As I said, there's more we could say about community, but I wanted to highlight those elements. The final piece that I wanted to speak about today in terms of our vision is ministry. And I touched on some of this last week. We want to be a community where people discover their gifts. Each and every one of you has been given gifts by the Holy Spirit at your baptism and confirmation that are different to the gifts that I've been given, that Father Brian and Father Tony have been given. They're different from the gifts that the person sitting next to you on the pew has been given. We've each been given different gifts. And part of the beauty of being a faith community is when we put those gifts together in the service of God. The church is built up for the sake of the world. That when people are using their gifts together in a collaborative way, what actually happens is that God becomes tangible, present in a really palpable, a really obvious kind of way. We want that for our parish community. And so part of that is an expectation that everybody would contribute. If we're not a spiritual service station, if we're not the equivalent of coming here each week and getting filled up with gas and going home, but if we're a community, that means we've all got a responsibility to contribute. You don't just partake of a service, you make a contribution to the community of faith, according to your gifts and according to your capacity. Now with that, there's an expectation that we would all make that contribution, but people are going to do it differently. They're going to do it differently according to their gifts and also according to their capacity. We know that people at different stages and in different moments in their life are going to be able to contribute in different ways. But we do want everybody to contribute. I promise there's no better way to feel connected, to feel like you belong, to feel like you're making a difference, to feel like you're part of this place than to be serving, than to be contributing in that way. So I want to warmly encourage you to find a way to contribute. Get in touch with us and we've got a whole bunch of ways that we'd love to invite you to be involved. So, they're just the first three elements of our vision. There are another three. But what I want to finish by saying is that sense of which we've got a really clear direction about where we want to go and about the kind of community we want to be, about the kind of difference we want to make in the world. What we don't want to be is a place that aimlessly wanders around saying, if we just do what we've always been doing, we'll be fine, because that actually won't cut it. We're called to respond to the gospel, to the person of Jesus in new ways at this moment, with creativity, energy, passion, and enthusiasm. We've got a wonderful opportunity to come forward and together as a community of faith and to make a real difference. That's my prayer and my hope for our parish. I pray and hope it's our prayer for our parish as well.